Hello and welcome back to another tutorial in our Next.js course. In this tutorial, we will talk about the nested routes and the dynamic routes. Let's do a quick recap on the nested routes as we have already discussed this in the previous video. As app router is a file-based routing, in Next.js, you can create the folders inside folders to generate the nested routes. Looking at the example, you can see there's an app which is the root folder which has its own page.tsx, and inside it we have about folder and the profile folder which have their own page.tsx again. Talking about the post folders have multiple folders like first, second and third with their own page.tsx, and these are basically the nested routes. Let's take a quick example for the same. In the previous video, we had already talked about nested routes with the example of this about folder with the carrier folder inside it. For this video, let's try another example by creating a folder named posts. Inside this folder, let's create a file called page.tsx, which is going to be mandatory file for rendering the UI. Let's try to export a React component from this page.tsx so that we can render the posts route. So let's return a div with a heading like let's use h1 and say I have below posts. Additionally, let's try to have some h2. Let's name them first, second and third. Let's try to access the posts page now, and it is showing first, second and third. Now to make the nested routes, we need to create new folder inside the posts folder, which we can name first, second and third. Every folder will have its own page.tsx for them to render the UI. Okay, let's change the UI. So for page 1, we'll show I am first post. For second post, we will show I am second post, and for the third post, we will show I am third post. Okay, now let's try to access our nested posts routes. Post slash first says I am first post. Post slash second says I am a second post. Post slash third says I am third post. This is it for understanding the nested routes. Okay, now let's try to understand what are dynamic routes. When you don't know the exact names ahead of time, like the route names, the segment names ahead of time, and you want to create routes dynamically, we will use the dynamic routes implementation of Next.js app router. Let's try to understand this with an example. Okay, let's say you have a folder named blocks. Inside blocks, let's try to make a page.tsx which will show all the blocks in one page, and then we will try to see how we can access the blocks dynamically. Okay, so for the blocks, we will have the blocks with the ID 1, 2, 3 and so on. Let's try to access the blocks page. Okay, it says I have below blocks 1, 2 and 3. Now let's try to see how we can access these routes dynamically. Create a new folder. You can name it with the square brackets, where let's say you want to name it as blog profile page.tsx. Inside page.tsx, again you can have similar kind of view, a blog. Let's try to access it first. So when I try to access block slash 1, it says I am a block. When I say block slash 2, it says I am block. When I say block slash 50, it still says I am block, and even if I say 500, it will say I am block. Currently, you are unable to identify which block you are at apart from looking at the route. For this, Next.js pass params prop to the layout, the page, and the route. Let's try to access this params prop. Okay, so in this object, let's try to access params, and let's try to render it on the UI with params dot. The name should be the name inside the square bracket, which is blog ID, and I think it should work now. Let's try to access the page. Okay, if you can see, if I'm accessing one, it says I am a blog one. Let's move it to 500. Yeah, I am blog 500. So this works, but still I can see there is an error, which is a TypeScript error. Let's resolve this by passing the type as the object, which will have params inside it. The type of this params will again be an object, and inside object, let's add the name of the um, slug, which is blog ID, and its type is string. That's it. This resolves our TypeScript error as well. In the next video, we will talk about the nested dynamic routes and generating static params and catching up all the subsequent segments with the dynamic routes. This is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching and taking time till the end of this video. If you liked any of the segment of this video, please like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for the latest and upcoming updates. Thank you so much for watching.